Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson today. We're listening to Web of Lies.
Sydney Sutherland went jogging and never made it back home.
People just don't disappear. Not in rural Arkansas on a dirt road.
The whole time I kept saying, is she hurt? Is she hollering for me? Is she wanting her mama?
The moment he agreed to let law enforcement search his phone, he was confessing. This is what we do. This is the data that we use. This is how we get to the end.
I've been doing this for almost 32 years. I've seen things that nobody should have to see. But this case was the tipping point for me. We uncovered her body with our bare hands.
We sat down in an interview room. I confronted him with this data that showed us exactly his movements on the day Sydney disappeared. And I told him the data doesn't lie.
You've never spoken publicly about it?
No, not like this, no. For sure, like it took me time to even try to play live. Get something like, I don't know, like, I live with it every day. So yeah, it is tough. Well, I met Sydney when we were younger, and we had mutual friends through the years, and then when we got out of high school was when we actually dated. September 2020 would have been 4 years of me and Sydney being together. We were gonna think about getting married, having a future, like having kids. Wednesday morning, when I woke up, my dad picked me up to go to work. And then Sydney got off that day, and about 1:30, 2 o'clock, she went running. We were Snapchatting. And like, she just Snapchatted me a picture of the gravel road, and that was it. No words, nothing. Time went on, I called her, text her, nothing was happening. So I just let time go on, because I got off at 5. Sydney's car was still in the driveway when I got home. I go in the house, and her wallet and keys are still in the same spot she left them. I mean, if she was going to go somewhere, she would at least have her wallet. You don't know a woman that doesn't go somewhere without a purse. And that's when I knew something was up. I just went riding around the farms everywhere Sydney would run, and I didn't find anything. And so I went to my house, looked all over my house, called her, texted her, where are you? What's happening? Like, why aren't you responding to me? Like, this isn't normal for you. I mean, just didn't know what to do, so I called her mom, and when Maggie answered me, I asked her if Sydney was with her.
Sydney is my baby girl. She's my best friend. Probably never went over 2 days without speaking, and basically we spoke every day or seen each other. My husband and I, we have 3 children. We got Tyler, Sam, and Sydney. Sydney was the glue to our family that kept us together. She was also the boss. She told us all what to do.
She loved her nieces, loved their dogs. I mean, she was just a good person all around. I mean, that's why she was in healthcare. I mean, if I was sick, she was dang sure taking care of me. So
I met Sydney as a child, but we really connected and became very close in nursing school. We worked on a med-surg unit, so we got all different kinds of patients. Probably the best quality she had is she always took care of people. Right when I had my daughter, she got me a necklace that had Addison's name on it. That's something that I cherish forever.
After Alex called me, I was driving as fast as I could to get there. And I got on the phone and I called her dad and I called both boys and I was like, y'all need to get here right now. Something's wrong.
We racked our brains for everything that we could think of to try to use technology, I guess, to find her. Her phone with Bluetooth, like most phones, is connected to her car. And so we thought if we drove around and tried to call her phone, that her phone would ring. And so we would know if her phone was anywhere close. But that didn't work. At one point, we tried to get into her laptop to see if we could connect to the GPS to try to find her location that way. We knew in our hearts that Sydney wouldn't play a game like this.
It was not like her that no one knew where she was at. It was a panic. It was the worst feeling ever. It's just like my heart stopped for just a moment, like, where's my baby?
Around 7 o'clock that evening, I was sitting at home, and Captain Ricky Morales, which is my patrol captain, he had got a phone call and stating that Sydney was missing, Sydney Sutherland. Of course, at that point, I got up, went out, and we went to the Sutherland residence. Jackson County is a small community. Everybody knows everybody. I knew Sydney. I know her whole family. She was friends with one of my daughters. Matter of fact, my daughter dated her brother at one time. So there was a connection there. When we first got there, I immediately started trying to see what resources that we had, trying to get a ground search going. There's no cameras out there. It's a farmhouse where she lived, surrounded by fields. If you place yourself at Sydney's house and you go just west, probably maybe 2/10 of a mile, maybe, you run into Jackson County Road 41, which is a gravel road that runs north and south. And that's where she went jogging. What we try to do is we start at the residence and we work way out in a perimeter.
it was the wildest thing I think I've ever seen. Once everybody started hearing, there was probably 150 people that were on the look that night.
They came quick, fast, and in a hurry. All of our friends, family, strangers, we were all searching through the woods. I remember just thinking that maybe when we were yelling her name that she would yell back for us and we would be able to get to her.
We request what's called a phone ping from their phone or their Apple Watch. Those devices, they talk to the cell phone towers, and we're able to pinpoint locations where that device was at based on its communication with the cell phone towers. We were hopeful that when we got the extra ping, it would lead us to her, but it didn't.
The area where this occurred, there's not a lot of cell phone towers. So a lot of times when you try to ping a phone and there's not many towers, it doesn't give a real accurate depiction of where the device is at. They're saying the phone's in the area, but it could be in a 1,500 meter radius. It's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack.
That was the $1 million question all day, was the phone. Where was Sydney's phone? If they were able to find the phone, would they find Sydney?
And we searched from the ground as long as we could until it got too dark. At which time, that's when I called the search off for the night.
A lot of the friends and people that came out, the volunteers and stuff, they left the boys and their friends. They just stayed all night.
It's always hard as a sheriff to call off a search when someone is missing. You don't sleep. You constantly worry. Your mind's running 100 miles an hour trying to think, did I forget something? Have I left something out? What do I need to do now? What do I need to do tomorrow? Did you give the family what they need?
That's the worst feeling ever. It's like, will I ever see her again? And what has happened to her? The whole time I kept saying, you know, is she hurt? Is she hollering for me? Is she wanting her mama?
Sydney Sutherland's case was different right off the bat. You know, you just don't disappear. Not in rural Arkansas on a dirt road.
We started back about 7 the next morning. Volunteers started showing up. It was unreal, the number of people that showed up wanting to do something.
Based off the initial information provided by the family and by friends, we believe Sydney left her home somewhere around 2. We received information that a friend of hers sent Sydney a message through Snapchat at approximately 2:41 p.m. And we know that Sydney never ever opened that message. We believe it was probably around 2:41 or just prior to 2:41 p.m. Sydney disappeared.
The next step was contacting Apple to locate her phone using the same technology as the Find My iPhone app.
I focused more on the interviewing. I knew initially that I needed to get with Maggie to find out, is there anything concerning at all within the family? And of course there wasn't. And then I moved from there to Alex, the boyfriend.
9:30 that morning, I got a phone call from Sydney's mom. So-and-so is up here, and they need you to come take these interviews. And they want to subpoena your phone. My first instinct was, I guess they're going to think I did something.
We are at the Jackson County Sheriff's Office conducting an interview with Alex Nicholson.
My experience has been in investigations like this, your suspect is going to be somebody in her inner circle. So my initial contact with Alex, I was trying to pick him apart every which way.
When's the last time you and Sydney had any
Arguments?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there were a couple. I mean, you know, you argue. But I mean, nothing extreme. I mean,
You need to be able to pick up on what is normal emotion and normal behavior. And Alex was very concerned.
I mean, I was looking for her, you know what I mean? Because I always look for her when she goes walking, no matter what.
My initial impression of Alex was that he was not involved.
That morning, Apple came back and gave us a latitude and longitude of the last known location of the phone. So we immediately sent searchers to that area, which was up on Jackson 41. They got up there and started searching and actually finally located the phone. It was maybe 300 yards south of the overpass, next to the field, maybe a tenth of a mile from Sydney's house. So once we found the phone, I kind of knew at that point that something bad had happened.
There was no damage to her phone. It was functional and was turned on. We contacted her mother. We got their consent to search it with a forensic tool that we had. The main thing we noticed was there was an Apple Books that was playing, and it looks like it had been placed on pause. If you were listening to an audiobook and you're jogging or walking down the road and somebody pulls up to speak to you, then you're probably going to put it on pause. It kind of made us wonder if somebody had pulled up there that she knew.
When they found the phone, that gave me an even more sickening feeling because I knew something was terribly wrong.
We were doing everything we could to find anything on Sydney. My son Sam remembered that his ring had went off just hours before she disappeared. And he had a recording of her getting things out of the back of her car, and that was the last picture or video that we have of her.
Someone made a poster that had Sydney's face on it all around us, towns close to us. People were going through and putting those up. I was scared that she was taken somewhere other than Jackson County.
So Highway 67, 167 is one of the major thoroughfares that gets you from Little Rock all the way up to St. Louis. There was a lot of concern that somebody may have stopped off and potentially kidnapped her.
We were trying to get the word out, so that if there was anyone out there that saw anything, even if they didn't think it was important, we wanted to know, because the least little thing could have helped.
There are no solid leads at this time. So we ask if you know anything or if you have seen her or even think that you have seen her to please call the Jackson County Sheriff's Office.
The first person that reached out to us was a UPS driver.
The UPS driver was on County Road 41 approximately the time that Sydney went missing.
There were a lot of questions about the UPS driver when the public learned about it from law enforcement, because to the public's point of view, that was the last person to see Sydney alive. So who is the UPS driver and what is their story? Sydney Sutherland's disappearance was the biggest story of the month. And it turned out to be the year.
The search for a missing Jackson County woman involving multiple law enforcement agencies now, and it continues.
We are preparing to head to Jackson County. There are a few leads.
The UPS driver got off work and went home. She saw on the news that a young woman had went missing from County Road 41, and she remembered seeing Sydney on County Road 41 around 2:30 p.m. on the 19th. So she contacted the state police and was able to provide us with a statement.
So I turned right onto Jackson County Road 41 North. When I come up over the bridge, I could see her. So I started to slow down right before I hit the gravel because I didn't want to dust her out. So I slowed way down and went past her. I think my delivery that day was at 2014. Went down and backed into the driveway and come back. And I did not see her on my way back.
We did find out that the UPS driver had one of the best alibis. There was a GPS tracker in the truck.
The GPS log indicates the driver delivered a package at 2:32 at a residence. The GPS also shows that the vehicle never stopped until she was out of the area. Technology a lot of times is used to put criminals in prison, but technology can actually prove that you're innocent. You didn't have anything to do with it, because it can put you in a location that makes you totally unable to commit a crime.
What was her demeanor like?
I almost want to say that she might have had a smile. I didn't think anything was wrong with her. I mean, it just kills me to think that I did not pay more attention.
There were a lot of people that were hoping that there'd be some kind of clue but it was just dead end roads. People were in desperate search mode, but what they did not expect was there's another person that saw Sydney that day.
I was outside of the command post coordinating searches when someone came to me and said that we really needed to look at one of the volunteers. Quake Llewellyn had made a statement that he was the last one to see Sydney Sutherland before she disappeared.
Initial information provided by Quake revealed that he saw Sydney at 2:45 p.m. on County Road 41. That's in our window when she probably went missing. Quake and Sydney, they both went to the same school at Tuckerman. They weren't friends. They just knew of each other. He said he passed by her, didn't stop. He spent maybe 20, 25 minutes at Tupelo Break. There's a water pump out there. I think he said he had to add some oil to it. He came back the same way that he went out there on County Road 41. He said that he didn't see Sydney on his way back. He didn't make any statements about seeing any other vehicles or anything like that. It was very limited, very brief interaction that lasted about 6 minutes.
Leads start running out, and it was hard every time I would have to go to Maggie and tell her I have no news, nothing good to say, having nothing that could give them some type of hope was hard, very hard.
We had several different investigators speaking to different people, and one common denominator was if anybody had a hunch on who might have did it, they all said Quake Llewellyn.
You know, they say he's a weird kid, he's strange, kind of shady, not very nice.
I guess you could say socially awkward, somewhat quiet. To my knowledge, Quake Llewellyn had no prior criminal history.
We started hearing rumors. There were some people saying he did it. The suspicion was very high. He just stood out because of his past and some of his history of strange things that he had done.
I mean, I've hung out with him. We've went places. We've done things together. So, like, we've known each other. Just heard little weird stuff about him over the years, like eating roadkill.
On Thursday, we were sitting at the headquarters, a group of us, and I looked over and I said, "There's Quake." And I told my friends, I'm like, I'm going to go ask him, since they said he was on the road, if he's seen Sydney. So I walked up to him and I said, "Quake, can you tell me anything? Did you see her? Was she running? Was she walking? Which way was she going?" And he goes, "She was running." And I said, "Can you tell me anything else?" He goes, "No, I hope you find her." He just kind of gave me just a small little hug, like on the shoulders. And he walked off and got him some pizza. I walked back over to the group of the girls that I was sitting with, and I said, "Something's not right. Quake knows something. I could just feel it."
We don't have a lot of people go missing in Jackson County. Most of the time, the calls we get on missing persons, we find them pretty quick. But this case, with Sydney being missing, we've never had anything of that magnitude that I can remember in my 32 years. The number of people that came out, people didn't even know her just because they knew what type of person she was. They wanted to help. And we get that a lot in Jackson County.
Quake Llewellyn was one of the 150 members of the community that had come out to help in the search for Sydney. Quake's dad, Michael, reached out to law enforcement and offered that they come in for an interview.
He found out Quake was a person of interest and said that there's just no way that Quake could have done it. Quake was innocent. He's trying to help find her. He will do anything he needs to do to prove that.
In Quake's situation, he's got his dad that's so adamant that he's innocent. If he doesn't cooperate, then he's not only going to look guilty to us, he's going to look even more guilty to them.
Whenever I start an interview, I try to build a rapport with the individual. Quake was quiet. When he said something, it was very brief. He didn't go into great detail about much of anything. Let's just go back to Wednesday. That's when this happened. Whenever you turned on to 41, about where did you see Sydney?
I saw Sydney on the hill, the actual book presence, and I saw her walking.
He was consistent with the information that he provided previously to investigators, that he didn't have anything to do with this.
I really wish I could remember more.
I was outside the bay area of the state police headquarters that day. They had Quake pull his truck up into the bay and ask for consent to search his truck. They went through the vehicle. Of course, the vehicle was in shambles. I mean, it was full of stuff.
When law enforcement searched the back of his pickup truck, they started to find there was much more to his story than what he was sharing.
There was hydraulic fluid that was spilled in the bed of the truck. They kind of felt like it might have been poured out to possibly cover up evidence. When they started looking closer, they had seen what they believed to be blood splatter around the tailgate area of the truck.
You know, that's not always good, because if there's blood, there's trauma. I think everybody was, even I know I was hopeful that she was still alive. I advised Special Agent McNeil that we really need to get Quake's phone. Michael, Quake's dad, he says, hey, you can search his phone. He's got Life 360 app that his wife installed on his phone. Life 360 is an app that it's basically used by families. You can add you and your wife and your kids onto the app. It shows where you went, where you've been, how long you've been there, if you stopped, how long you've been stopped, the speed you were traveling when you went from point A to point B. It was either going to prove that he was totally innocent or that he was somehow involved. We go back to the day that Sydney disappeared. Quake's traveling north on Jackson County Road 41, just like he told us in his interview. He crosses the highway US 67. He goes a few hundred feet and he stops. He travels back south to where her phone was located. The app indicates that he stops again. And it's stopped there for several minutes. I mean, what's the coincidence that she's going to go missing at a specific time when he goes past her and turns around and comes back? It appears that he's not telling us the whole truth.
Quake, you have got to be able to explain why you stopped on that road for 8 minutes, because
I never stopped. No, sir.
There's no way around it, Quake. There's no way around it.
Oh.
Cell phone data, that is factual, true data.
This may be the first time it's lied.
No.
Because I swear to God, on my life, on my...
Quake, I know something bad happened.
Sydney Sutherland's disappearance struck a chord with people because Sydney is like everyone's neighbor, everyone's sister. It just hit so many people because they were like, this could be somebody that I know. Quake Llewellyn told police that he saw Sydney running on County Road 41, but law enforcement were able to prove, using the Life 360 app, that what Quake was telling law enforcement was only half of the story.
Quake's vehicle appears to stop where Sydney's phone was located. He turns around again. He's traveling at a fairly high rate of speed, which seems somewhat suspicious. We're thinking that he kidnapped her. Something happened because she was there and now she's not. We see him travel approximately 2 miles, and he goes straight to a particular area that's near a wood line, and he stays there for about 30 minutes.
You were out there on that road, stopped for 8 minutes.
Because you're saying sorry to my language. I wasn't. I was never on that road stopped.
I ended this portion of his interview, and he was taken to another interview room where he submitted to a polygraph.
At this point, I'm calling some other road troopers that are assisting with search and rescue. I tell them, I'm like, you need to get your cadaver dogs into this location right here on the Life 360 app, because I'm thinking if he did do something with Sydney, that she's going to be in that area.
I was outside the command post. One of my investigators had called me on my cell phone and said they found a body. I immediately got in the truck and headed that way. It was on the north side of the interstate in the area we call Tupelo Break, right at the wood line at the edge of a field. We uncovered her body with our bare hands and lifted her out of the grave. I couldn't tell exactly how she died, but she had a lot of facial injuries. She was nude. Her shirt was pulled up over her face. When you've seen this person grow up and you've seen the type of person she grew up to be, and you know the family, it's hard. It's very hard. But you have a job to do, and you have to do it.
They had found her body, and I lost it. What's the worst words I've ever heard? The worst pain? It's like I've just been stabbed right in my heart. And from that day on, I still feel that way. Sheriff Lucas came in talking to us, and I just kept insisting, please let me go to where she's at. And they said, no, we can't let you. And I was just like, remember begging, please just let me go.
Once you're put in that situation, like, you don't know how to feel, like, is how I can explain it to you. I'm going to say you really have no feeling at the time because you don't feel like it's real. And then you kind of have to wake up from this dream after a while and it's real.
There's no question that when Quake Llewellyn went in for his interview with Arkansas State Police, the moment he agreed to let law enforcement not only search his pickup truck, but hand over the phone with the Life 360 app on it, he was confessing at that moment.
We were able to put some pieces together with the Life 360, but working with prosecutors, anything can happen to evidence. Evidence can be not packaged properly, or you can lose data. We want a confession.
They found her. But I'm telling you, they got you. What happened? I didn't see her. I don't understand. I got scared. I didn't see her, but I felt her, my truck interview.
He appeared to be emotional. I don't recall ever seeing any tears. I think he's sorry he got caught. I think that's probably about the only thing he's sorry about. So Quake Llewellyn was provided with the information that Sydney's body had been found. He told investigators that he never saw her, that him hitting her with his truck was an accident.
I didn't see her. And at first, I just kept driving because it just kind of shocked me because I didn't know what had happened.
Well, that doesn't make sense. Sydney had no clothing. So we believe that there was probably a sexual component to this.
I'm not just going to ask you one more time, Quake. Just tell us what you did. Driving down the road. I see her. And I turn around just to get a better look. I don't see her in the same side of the road she was on. But I didn't know that I hit her with the truck driver's side flasher. At that point, I'm thinking she's dead. Completely dead. So I take her, put her on my tailgate, and I take her up to where I lived. And I took her clothing off. And I attempted to have sex with her. I gave up on it. You know, I was leaving his home and buried.
The fact that after he hits her, it's probably 10 minutes, it's not even 10 minutes, he's raping her. I mean, that's not an accident.
He acted like he couldn't see her, but when you come off the overpass, it's pavement. It's not dust. He knew where she was at. I will never understand why he had to be so cruel, so worthless to run over someone.
So his story of being an accident is BS.
Digital evidence was the leading factor for us solving this case. From the start, we had unread messages from Snapchat. We had Sydney with her cell phone. The UPS driver's GPS data log established a timeline. The Live 360 app that took us to where Sydney's body was located. The Live 360 app is the proverbial smoking gun in the case.
Quake was charged with capital murder, rape, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse. There's no question that this evidence was solid. Gosh, we didn't even talk about the home surveillance camera.
The investigators were looking at video from the farm shop from the day after she went missing. When Quake got there, he came around to the front and was looking at a dent in the hood of the truck. His wife had made the statement that the dent wasn't there before. And where he hit her, it coincided with the dent on the hood of this truck where she was hit from behind. Then it snapped her head back and broke her neck.
We knew that she was supposed to be wearing an Apple Watch. We took logs back out there. We did locate her watch right around the same area that her phone was found. It was totally destroyed. It was cracked.
We were called in to come up and meet the prosecutors, and we get in there, and they just said, we've got something to tell y'all, and he wants to plead. We wanted the death penalty, but in the state of Arkansas, that is something you just don't see very often.
Tonight, Quake Llewellyn is a prisoner of the state and will never see freedom again. Llewellyn pled guilty to capital murder and rape, a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
When we had to do our impact statements, I just told him he was an evil monster. We would never get to see her get married, to have kids. He took everything away from us that day.
I mean, she was everything to me. I mean, really. I lost a best friend. I mean, I lost that a lot. Like, I lost a piece of my heart for sure. I don't have that certain somebody anymore.
She was something special. That's something we'll never get back. I missed her contagious laugh. That's what I miss the absolute most.
I've been doing this for almost 32 years. And I've seen things that nobody should have to see. And when this case came about with Sydney, I reached my tipping point and felt like it was time to go, time to do something different. And so I put in for my retirement, and I retire on September the 1st of this year. I keep my hopes up. I'm walking the streets of Baltimore.
Pink was Sydney's favorite color.
I keep my eyes out, and I'm watching the world with my feet.
So thinking of doing something for her, her brothers Sam and Tyler come up with doing these huge, big pink crosses, one at the site and one at the cemetery.
This is the moment. It's the cold, it's the flames, it's the fault line. This is the moment. It's the moment we take from the main line.
People put up their pink lights, and to this day they still leave their pink lights on. I have one that I will probably always have a pink light on. It'll never go off. To see those pink lights staying on and the sign still up is very comforting to our family, to know that Sydney is still alive in memory.
It's the moment we take from the main line.
Baby boy, if you see my video, I love you.
After a few days of showing Adika's picture all over social media and never getting a response back from my son, I knew that something was wrong. Then I noticed that there's another mom posting that her son was missing. They disappeared so closely to one another that you couldn't help but think this has to be connected.
We started to look at social media. We started to look at information from the phone companies. This entire case occurred for 3 ounces of marijuana, a toy gun by a 17-year-old.
I'm gonna go grab my straps. I'm gonna go shoot his house real quick, alright?
It's one of the most eerie pieces of evidence I'll ever have in any case.
County authorities making a break in the case of Enrique Rios and Elijah Moore, the the two teen friends who went missing just weeks apart at the end of 2016.
When we first heard that we were getting this case, I knew that this was going to be a hugely complex trial, and my first thought was, where do I even begin? Fortunately for us, people don't understand the level of footprint they leave on cell phones. He didn't know that we would be able to go back and get all of his Facebook records. And deleting a Facebook record to him in his mind meant this is gone forever.
They try to hide their whereabouts at the times of the crimes, and instead it turned out to point the finger right at them. The last time I saw my son, it was October 17th, 2016. I came home that evening with my daughter. My husband, everybody was settling in to go to bed. Enrique walked into my room with his pajamas on, like he was about to go to bed. Nothing out of the ordinary. In the morning when I woke up, I noticed he was not in his bed. So then I began texting Enrique over and over. I even sent him a little bit of an angry message saying, "Hey, where are you? You're going to be late for school." It was weird. All of my son's belongings were still home. Enrique's ID and wallet were just on his bed. Enrique's phone would go straight to voicemail. So at that point, I have no idea where he's at. I'm about to go to work. Later on, I got a text message from Enrique's phone saying that he's sorry he fell asleep at his friend's house. These text messages are coming through, and I'm reading them, and I knew that it wasn't for my son. That wasn't something he would have ever done. He loved that job. He loved that school. Whoever was texting me from the phone, it was not Enrique. Enrique was always happy. Ever since he was little, he was the best big brother. Anything Camila wanted, Enrique would do for her. Enrique would drop everything just to play with Camila. That's the type of brother he was.
What's happening, Facebook? It's Rico.
When Enrique was about 15, 16 years old, he was in a little bit of trouble with the police.
Watching some TV. Hella bored. You feel me?
He was arrested once, and that was in 2015. And he got on probation. And through probation, he started in the work program. He ultimately started going to a continuation high school in Woodland, where he was also learning a trade, making money on his own, and he ended up really thriving in that atmosphere. He was so proud of himself, and I was proud of Enrique. I ended up calling T-Mobile, asking them if they could ping his phone, and T-Mobile said that they could not ping Enrique's phone because the phone had been shut off. He never had his phone off. He would ignore my call if you didn't want to speak with me, but his phone, like any other teen, would always be on. That's when I knew that something was wrong. I called the Yolo County Sheriff's Office to report Enrique missing. And the officer asked me, "Oh, but you think he'll be back, right?" Once he wrote Enrique's name down and typed it in the computer, he probably saw that he was on probation or that Enrique had gone missing before,
which was a runaway before in October 2014. The police officer probably just thought, oh, he'll be back. It's not a big deal. Another runaway.
So about a week after Enrique Rios went missing, I was assigned to the case. There was some mention that he had previously ran away before. So I was kind of in the mindset that, okay, he'll probably be back within a couple of days or maybe even a week.
When I realized that the police were not classifying my son as anything else besides a runaway, I was pretty angry. I started taking matters into my own hands. So I started making videos of myself and posting them all over Facebook.
If you can call me, call me. I need you home, baby. I need you home.
Over the next few weeks, it went viral, and I did have about 20-something million people all over the world sharing that video, but I still don't have my son home. 3 weeks in, I am on Facebook, and I noticed that there's another mom in the area, Alicia Moore, and she's posting about her son. She posted that Elijah was missing, so if anybody knew anything about where he was, to please reach out to her. Enrique knew Elijah Moore. They were both in the same program, and they were at the same school. Their circumstances are kind of similar. They have to be tied together.
Elijah was a good kid. He was a mama's boy for sure. He saw me struggle as a single mom. Elijah was adamant that he wanted to, make sure that I was okay. His whole deal was he wanted to help me. November 4th, 2016, it was Elijah's birthday weekend. He was going to go to Sacramento to my sister's and hang out for the weekend, but he never made it home. It was a Friday, and he was happy about being able to get his check. When Elijah got out of school, the bus dropped him off at the check cashier. This was maybe around 4. By 6:30, he still hadn't made it home. Finally, I was able to get a call back from him. And he was like, Mom, I'm going to go take care of something and I'll be home later. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? What are your brother's over here waiting. You guys are supposed to be going to Sacramento. And he was like, I know, Mom. I love you. I'll be there shortly. And he hung up. And that was the last time I spoke with my son. That was the last time. The next morning, I called the police. However, on the report, the officer, he put something totally different than what I said. Basically, that my son was a runaway.
Unfortunate as it is, I suspect that the fact that these boys were people of color had something to do with that initial classification. The fact that, at least in terms of Enrique, he had gone off in the past for a day or two. There had been run-ins with law enforcement. So I think that led to a certain way of thinking among law enforcement, which had to be very upsetting to these mothers.
I just felt so jilted and so jaded. Any child that comes up missing should not be able to run away. I mean, I don't care how truant they are, they're still children and they still need to be looked for.
I reached out to her. I let Alicia know that my son was missing too.
For me to find out that Enrique was missing and my son is missing, then it had to be a connection.
At that point, we had 2 missing boys from the same program, same school, and We weren't going to stop until we knew what happened.
No one's doing anything and something's going to be done. We had never gone through this. You know, we didn't know the first thing to do other than the cops. So I called Lola and I said, look, I'm going out and I'm passing out flyers in the neighborhood. If you want to come out, you know, join me.
We showed flyers of Enrique, flyers of Elijah. I began making events on Facebook and asking everybody to please gather in front of Yolo County Sheriff. I still could not get Enrique classified as a missing person. And the news station told me that they couldn't put my son on the news because the officers or the department had not changed his status as a runaway.
It wasn't until another day that we were out passing out flyers. We were going to move to another section of town, and something said, no, just go to the mayor's office. And I walked into the mayor's office. The secretary, she was taken aback because of how I came in. I was just in a rage. And I said, what's going on? Why aren't the police doing anything? She said, just give me a moment. When she came out, she said, they want to see you at the police department.
So Elijah Moore, by all accounts from his family, was a very loving, caring kid. He was 17 years old at the time. He had a couple of scrapes with law enforcement in the past. Nothing too serious. I think initial impressions were that maybe he's out with friends, because of the majority of these cases, when you get them, they're usually runaways. But when I spoke with Alicia after receiving the case, she told me that was not like Elijah to be done.
I explained to the officers that my son has been missing and no one's done anything. You guys haven't done. And it's been long enough. I said, Elijah and Enrique is related, and I need whatever's runaway status you guys have on my son to be changed, because I can't even get anything on the news about this. And they were like, you're right. And the ball started rolling.
Heartbreaking pleas from two mothers linked by a cruel connection. Their teenage sons have vanished.
I just want to hug you, and I just want to kiss you, and I just want to tell you that I love you. Love you, love you, love you, love you.
Together, the teens attended a construction training program at the Yolo County Fairgrounds through their continuation school, where they each enrolled after arrests in 2015. Their moms say they were now getting good grades.
It's really a credit to Lola and Alicia. They deserve a whole lot of credit for being active in the community.
My hope is that they're together because they take care of each other. They're friends.
Knocking down that door of law enforcement saying, hey, there's something wrong here, to really try to bring their sons home.
Detective Jameson from the Woodland Police Department reached out to our office. He wanted to ask some questions regarding our missing persons case involving Enrique Rios.
We decided that based on the resources of both of our departments, that this was going to be a joint investigation. And we were going to work on both of these missing kids.
My initial thought was that they could possibly be together. They were very close, and they did a lot of things together. Perhaps one ran away and then invited the other one. But some things didn't really add up. Why they had gone so long without being on social media or reaching out to their families. Digital technology is very important in any investigation. We started to reach out to Facebook, Instagram. We were wanting to make sure that these accounts from both missing juveniles, Enrique and Elijah Moore, were preserved so that if there's any clues or anything that would help in the investigation, it wouldn't be either wiped away or destroyed or the account shut down.
So the day he went missing after work, Elijah Moore went to a check cashing place in Woodland to cash his check. One of my first stops was to the check cashing place because video overwrites. People don't keep video for long, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to capture that video. Fortunately, I was able to obtain the security footage. We wanted to have a good description of what Elijah was wearing, how he was acting, if he was on the phone with anybody, if there was anybody in the area that we could identify to question and talk to. And I was able to interview the clerk that helped Elijah that day. He didn't have any further information for us. Next, I authored a search warrant to get Elijah Moore's phone records. When I was reviewing them, what stood out to me was that the day he went missing, the 4th of November, the phone appeared to turn off around 5 o'clock. The next day, on the 5th, the phone pinged in the Knights Landing area, which is a small community just north of Woodland.
Knights Landing is very rural. Not a lot of folks live there. There are some outlying homes, but it's a very, very tiny town, very spread out, a lot of vegetation, a lot of farmland.
The detective came to me and he said, Alicia, your son's phone, Elijah's phone, pinged in Knights Landing. And I said, why? Why would it ping there? Like, where is that at? I never even had heard of it.
The cell phone was only on for about 15 minutes in Knights Landing. At that point, it turns off again. I had no information that Elijah Moore knew anybody in Knights Landing or had friends there. So that piqued my interest.
That was a big piece of the investigation. All of a sudden, all points led to Knights Landing.
I was reviewing the location pings and cell phone data of Elijah Moore's phone. What stood out to me was that the day he went missing, the 4th of November, the phone appeared to turn off. It turned back on the 5th of November. The phone pinged in the Knights Landing area.
The detective said, Alicia, Elijah's phone pinged in Knights Landing. And I said, well, why would it ping out there? He doesn't know anybody out there.
A couple of months into the investigation, we started receiving tips. The first major tip was from a group of juvenile girls who were brought to the police department with their mother, and they wanted to tell me about a story that was told to them. They had a friend named Daniel who had come over to their house and was bragging that he knew what happened to Enrique Rios and Elijah Moore, and that they had been caught robbing a marijuana grow and been shot and killed and then buried in Knights Landing.
Everybody at the high school, everybody in Woodland, everybody kept telling me Enrique and Elijah were kidnapped and they were left in the hog farm in Knights Landing. I would hear that over and over. At that point, because of all these rumors, I'm feeling like something may have happened to my son. I may never see him again.
The shift occurred to a homicide investigation when we started interviewing people that had heard rumors of them being killed. This raised the level of importance in this investigation.
I made it to lines of people that did not want to reach out to the police, and an anonymous tipster called me and gave me two names, Jesus Campos and Jonathan Frost. The person was female, she wanted to get off the phone quickly, and I let the police know, and they searched that phone number so they can ask her more questions.
We traced the number and it came back to a Chevron gas station here in town. We were hoping that the video surveillance would show a car, possibly a license plate, that would lead us to this person who was giving us this information.
Unfortunately, their video wasn't working. At that point, Sergeant Garcia and I went to Jesus Campos' residence.
We found out that he was on probation, so we conducted a probation search of his apartment. Jesus Campos' demeanor was very nervous. He was standoffish. He didn't really want to answer too many questions. We gathered some electronics from his apartment and take it back to the Woodland Police Department for analysis. Along with Jesus Campos' name, the tip also mentioned Jay Frost. So we started looking into him, and also his brother, David Frost. David Frost was a name that we were familiar with in our law enforcement agency.
David Frost was definitely the ringleader of this group. They call themselves the Squad. He manufactured drugs, he sold drugs, he had a lengthy rap sheet, and he was somebody that a lot of people were afraid of.
The name Frost is very well known. There's a lot of history with that family.
There's a prior case where he had punched his then girlfriend in the mouth and knocked her teeth out.
We talked to a lot of people about David Frost, and they all describe him as somebody who is dangerous.
This was important because the Frost brothers lived in Knights Landing, and that's where Elijah Moore's phone pinged.
That's where David Frost lived. He thought he could do anything. So it all started, just piece of the puzzle that started to kind of make a clearer picture that, yes, we were on the right track.
And so January 2017, we were able to develop probable cause to search for the Frost home in Knights Landing. We did what's called a call out. We had a SWAT team, and we were calling participants out of the house. Everybody came out except for one person, David Frost.
So Enrique and Elijah go missing 2.5 to 3 weeks apart. One in October, one in November of 2016.
At this point, we were able to identify 3 persons of interest connected to the disappearance of Enrique Rios and Elijah Moore. And then we had a SWAT team. We were calling participants out of the house. Everybody came out except for David Frost. He had ran to the backyard and started to try to destroy his cell phone. Inside, we found a lot of loose marijuana, evidence of a grow. There was blenders and butane. What they'll do is they blend the marijuana leaves and such, and then run butane through it to extract the THC from it, which is illegal. The manufacturing of concentrated THC is a felony in California, and so we were able to arrest David Frost. He was brought back to the police department, and we sat down for an interview.
Hey, David. So your rights remain silent. Anything you say maybe?
David Frost was very aggressive.
He's anti-law enforcement. Didn't want to cooperate too much.
Let's go. Okay, let's go. Okay, you're a murderer. Okay, that's what you are. Okay. Basically, all I'm trying to look for, David, is I'm trying to find these kids. That's good, and I'm good for you. Their moms. Good for you, and I don't know what to say.
I don't understand what you're trying to say. You don't make any sense.
But what I was able to get out of there is that he told us that he did not know Elijah Moore. He did not know Enrique Rios. David was not the type of person that was going to spill his guts and tell us everything that had happened. But we knew we were on the right track. There was probably over 50 search warrants written in this case for different forms of social media or electronic evidence in this case. And it doesn't happen right away. When these companies are served, sometimes it can take months to get returns back.
So the Facebook documents that we had requested came in, and we were able to look through them and find names like Shondell Shannon.
Shandell was a local marijuana dealer in town. Elijah Moore's best friend told me that before he went missing, Elijah Moore had committed a robbery against David Frost, Jesus Campos, and Shandell Shannon.
Elijah was looking for marijuana, specifically 3 ounces of marijuana. And the meet was set up by Shandell Shannon for that to occur. Elijah came with a replica firearm. It was not a real firearm, but replica. And basically robbed David and Shandell and Jesus. So once we had names, there was a lot we were able to do, and that's one of the tools is looking at someone's digital footprint.
The evening of this robbery, Facebook records show that Shandell Shannon had been reaching out to Enrique Rios. Shandell knew Enrique as being a friend of Elijah, and that they could probably find out where Elijah was at through Enrique. Enrique is asked if he wants to go party. Shandell says that he would come pick him up. It appeared that these people were trying to lure Enrique Rios out.
We know from Facebook records that Shandell deletes these messages, and deleting a Facebook record to him in his mind meant this is gone forever. Shandell Shannon certainly didn't know that we would be able to go back and get all of his Facebook records. And it really was a game changer because I could physically see the buildup of the murder.
Reviewing Facebook records that we had received, we started noticing communications between Enrique Rios and Shondell Shannon the night of October 17, 2016, the night that Enrique Rios went missing. These were very vital because they provided the information as to what was going on that night. David Frost, Shondell Shannon, and Jesus Campos had just been robbed by Elijah Moore, and they were going to get retaliation.
They knew Enrique as being a friend of Elijah, and that they could probably find out where Elijah was at through Enrique. When we obtained information from Google, we found in Enrique Rios' search history that he had searched Knight's Landing that same night. This kind of gave us a clue of where Enrique thought he was being taken. We still didn't feel that we had enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Enrique and Elijah were killed and that these people had done it. There was more work to be done. But then we got a big break in the case. We seized Jonathan Frost's cell phone, and we were able to extract actual audio phone calls.
At the time, Jonathan Frost was recording all of his phone calls. One of the phone calls that he recorded was David Frost, the mastermind, the muscle behind all of this, right before the murder.
Hey, homie. Hey, bro. Bro, wake up right now. You wake up, put your shoes on right now, bro.
These calls were David telling Jonathan that he just got robbed by Elijah Moore.
Went down, just got robbed by some with a pistol, bro. No, really? Yep.
It's one of the most eerie pieces of evidence I'll ever have in any case.
Chanel walks him over to the car, gets the gun on him, pulls the gun on me and says, hey, give me everything you got. Give me that jar of weed.
It was literally David Frost articulating to Jonathan the motive for both murders. People make mistakes when they're young. And David Frost couldn't let it go. And he didn't let it go.
I'm dead serious, bro. So I'm in KO right now. I'm going to go grab my straps.
David mentions in the audio that he is on his way to Knight's Landing and he's going to get his gun.
Okay, you want to meet me or what do you want to do?
That was great because we were able to show that the night of these calls was the same night that Enrique Rios goes missing.
When we receive satellite cell phone data, we're able to plug in the locations of where the individuals were the night of the incident.
Their cell phones are all in the spot of the robbery. They all move up to Knight's Landing to where David gets his gun, and then they move back to Woodland. And then eventually that evening, their phones are shown to go to Sparta, to the address that Enrique Rios gave them. Enrique Rios' phone is still active for a bit. His last location shows him on a major highway near Esparto, going in the direction of Knight's Landing. At the same time, he's searching for Knight's Landing in his search history.
And that's the point where the phones all shut off. And then you have a dark period, which is just completely unusual for these phones because you can go back and look at the histories to see how often are these phones dark. And you have this just glaring gap. Then all of a sudden, you're able to track when the phones come back on. Our belief was that David Frost knew that his phone was leaving a digital footprint. And we knew that he knew that because he was savvy enough to instruct everyone to turn their phones off after they got Enrique. He didn't understand, or I guess couldn't comprehend, the importance of us having the information up to that. I remember the first thought that I had was, this can't be coincidence. I mean, these are our guys. There is no way that this can happen and then not be the guys. And that's not where the investigation ended. It's really kind of where it began. David Frost knew that his phone was leaving a digital footprint. And we knew that he knew that because he was savvy enough to instruct everyone to turn their phones off after they got Enrique. We weren't able to find where the actual murder occurred through the phones because he had turned them off. And the same thing for Elijah's murder. 3 weeks later,
our suspects are all in the area of where Elijah Moore went missing. And then their phones go off again.
Once you have it happening again, it's becoming now a pattern.
Cell phones can tell you a lot, but when they turn off their cell phones, that tells you a lot too.
And that's when we kind of like, okay, we know it's these guys.
A year and a half into the investigation, we were finally able to announce that we had made arrests in the disappearance of Elijah Moore and Enrique Rios.
4 men will face a judge tomorrow in connection with the murders of 2 missing Woodland teenagers.
I kind of understood that this was going to be a hugely complex trial, and my first thought was, where do I even begin? We didn't have a murder weapon, and we never found the bodies. We did not have any physical evidence other than the digital records. That was our physical evidence.
About 3 months after the arrest, I got a tip to be in court the next morning. Something was going to happen in the case. So I went to court, and lo and behold, there's Jonathan Frost, and he's pleading no contest to second-degree murder.
Jonathan Frost was now going to be a witness against his brother in our trial.
The mood that first day of trial for David Frost was very emotionally charged in that courtroom. Jonathan seemed very nervous coming in the courtroom, but he did say on the stand, "We are guilty and we will pay for these crimes." One of the days at trial included some pretty graphic testimony about the ways that Enrique and Elijah died.
Jonathan's testimony helped paint the picture of what happened to Enrique Rios.
Once he's in the car, they take him up to Knight's Landing.
They wanted Enrique to lead them to Elijah, and Enrique didn't want to give up his friend.
Enrique was taken alongside the river. He was shot in the stomach and then later shot in the head.
Enrique was in the river as he's being shot at, and then ultimately shot in the back of the head because he wouldn't give up Elijah. Even in the moment, a 16-year-old had the strength to be that loyal to his friend.
The next day, Jonathan saw Chandel texting Lola Rios with Enrique Rios' cell phone. These were the messages that Lola said didn't sound like Enrique.
When Jonathan Frost detailed what had happened exactly to Elijah, I had to get up and leave. I couldn't listen to that.
The day of Elijah Moore's murder, they were just to the west of the check cashing place. Jesus had pointed out that there's Elijah. David approached Elijah, and David's a much bigger person than Elijah Moore was. David told Elijah to get in the trunk of the car. He said that Elijah willingly got into the car. They then drove just north of Knight's Landing and to a wooded area along the river.
David Frost knew to have everyone shut the phones off so we couldn't find the bodies.
They zip-tied Elijah Moore's hands behind his back, took him out of the trunk, and made him walk about 300 yards and lay on his stomach, zip-tied his legs together. They had plastic bags, a shovel, a pickaxe, a can of gasoline, and a can of bleach. Jay said that they all took turns hitting Elijah with tree branches.
Jonathan Frost admitted that his brother told Elijah to pray. He admitted to his brother crushing Elijah's skull with a large log that he found, and then for good measure, shooting him.
They then dug a hole about 3 feet deep, put Elijah's body in the hole, poured gasoline, set him on fire. They then drove to the drawbridge in Knight's Landing, disposed of the pickaxe and the shovel in the waterway there, and then drove to the Frost house where they all grabbed a change of clothes, and then went to Denny's and had breakfast.
My first reaction as a human being and as a father is just complete and utter heartbreak. Enrique and Elijah, they were so young.
During the verdict, we were all crying. David Frost was guilty. He was going to be behind bars for life.
After the sentences were handed down, the judge said this case was one of the most evil that he'd ever seen. And what he told Shondale and Jesus was, you do not deserve to live in a civilized society. And he sent them to prison for life.
It's a search that continues in Yolo County years after the disappearance of Elijah Moore and Enrique Rios.
So part of the plea deal was that Jonathan would have to attempt to lead us to the bodies. We used cadaver dogs. We used the ground radar in these areas, and we came up empty.
I'm scarred for life. I'm never going to be the same person. A piece of me is missing. Without my child, who I know had so much potential and so many dreams, I won't be able to experience that with him.
Look back
What I miss the most about my son is just having him with me, seeing him and his sister play. I just want to hug him. I just want to talk to him, want to hear his voice. I still have the voicemail recording, so I just listen to Enrique's voice.